So your exact words were you were constantly afraid every day. And then you also said you were terrified every day. I was terrified of what? Fill in the blank.
I think failure was my biggest fear,
Okay. So you're,
or or
go
not
ahead.
being accepted, not being good enough.
Okay. How does any of that play out though, going into your profession as a doctor?
Well, I think it's interesting because most people would think, well, how could a doctor who's doing this, and now I've been practicing for 16 years, be afraid? And it wasn't a logical thing, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
something that w- has just been with me, that I was comfortable being afraid. And it sounds weird because you're like, well, how can that be comfortable? But it was what I
Right.
knew. And so
Right.
it's really where I lived. And so yeah, it was really my constant companion.
So let's break this down practically for people. Is give me a day. Now, most of us aren't oncologists or MDs or doctors or medical field, but give us a day. So you go to work. Are you physically feeling fear when you're walking into work, even though you've done it for 15 years? I'm just taking this apart even more. So
Yeah.
are you like, okay, I've got to go into work? Were you feeling like an anxious fear? Were you feeling like a fear? Um,
Well,
Somebody's going to confront me? Go ahead.
no, yeah. So, no, that's a good question. So, I would say, like with my patient care, going into patients' rooms, I obviously was not afraid of caring for my patients and taking care of them. But there were certain aspects that I would constantly have as, you know, bringing up fear for me. And one of them was like if I had to present something at a tumor board, which is a meeting with all the other doctors, I always felt like somehow I didn't know what I was talking about, even though
Mhm. You're
I
an
had
expert.
all of this knowledge. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm an expert in my field, but I had this just feeling like, oh my gosh, maybe someone's going to figure out that I really don't know what's going on. And it was irrational, but it was there. And then I would say also I'm an entrepreneur. And in entrepreneurship is where this like totally reared its head
Mhm.
because I really realized, oh my gosh, this is something that is underlying everything that I do. And it showed up, kind of in full force in that realm. But I would say in my everyday life as a doctor, it was less about like what I was doing physically, like the taking care of patients, but it was more like with my colleagues and, with thinking, gosh, do I know all the studies? Am I up to date on everything? There's so much to know all the time. And
Right.
I think I've carried this insecurity. And so I always had this underlying, like, am I smart enough? Do I know enough? Do I, and there's always more, right? I'm in a
Yeah.
field where actually almost breeds insecurity around not knowing enough because there's so much to know all the time and so much more to learn.
And the thing is this, excuse me for clearing my throat, is in your field, advancement is progressing so rapidly. There's no way unless you're Doogie Howser, if you know who that is.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no way that any doctor can keep up with the amount of information and research reports and everything else that's being poured into the world on a daily basis. Even my former, which I've seen this for a long time coming, my former neurologist who's released me from care. I was supposed to have like an appointment every month. I called him every three, four. I've talked to him 3 times in 8 months. And my last call is like, with how well you're doing, I'm releasing you from care. And even when I talked to him on some things early on, like my second call, he was like, well, I don't know the answer to that. He'd grab a book and look it up. And I'm like, wait, shouldn't he know? And then I thought, how can he keep up with everything? You know? So let me ask you this for your sake, is tell me one doctor that knows everything about everything in medicine.
Nobody.
No one. So then how come you were holding yourself, or what was causing you to hold yourself to a standard where you had to know everything, but it was okay for other people not to know everything?